Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Excel Today. It is September 16th, 2022, halfway through the month already. It's actually pretty surprising. It goes really fast. To, we're almost to the end of the year, actually. We're going to be, people are going to start talking about, I know Halloween stuff is all over the place already. And then even some places, they have Christmas stuff already on sale, which is a little surprising to me. It's like, man, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, it's Excel Today. We are going to cover Visio, cross-functional charts, right, Joe?
That's right. Cross-functional charts is where it's at. I mean, flowcharts in general are great, but cross-functional is the next level.
Yeah. And you guys might have noticed we're wearing the same hat. That is a little, I saw Joe had his A's hat on, so I had to grab my A's hat. So I'm just following Joe's lead today.
Well, yeah.
But the Oakland A's are our client, and so got to represent for our clients as well. Anyways, just some quick updates, guys, on the channel. I did cover all the new features that are going to be coming on last week's show. The courses, which is going to be very. I think you guys are going to love the courses just because there's a lot of extra stuff and a different player. When I say different player, is like when the thing that plays the video, that interface is going to look a lot different, and it's going to be much more geared towards training and learning. So that's going to be really cool. And then we're also going to have the exams get added there just to help you guys do knowledge checks and stuff like that, and help the learning stick, so to speak, to practice it more. I know in our videos we have all the exercise files, and we do ask you guys to practice the lessons you just learned, but now we're going to test you on it. Obviously you don't have to take the exams if you don't want to. They're just there as an addition to everything else we do.
100%.
Yeah, everyone's got to get 100%. And then oh yeah, how could I forget this update? So, and then next week we are doing VBA loop structures with Chelsea. It'll be Thursday, 8 a.m. Joe, I'm not 100% sure if you can make it. I didn't check the schedule yet, but
I'm gonna try to make it. I'll be in Atlanta for a awesome sales conference that's every year, so I'm gonna try to make it. I mean, I love seeing Chelsea. You all love seeing Chelsea, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So very excited about that. I confirmed everything with her yesterday, so we are all systems go 100%. Next Thursday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, we will have Chelsea here going over VBA loop structures, and that's pretty much it for the updates, guys. We have Access Advanced today, if I'm not mistaken. We'll have that going, and again, reminder, we're going to have the exercise files in the upper right corner there for you guys just to click, so you guys don't have to search around or go down to the video description and then find the link there. It's going to be right there available for you guys on the video. Just a new feature that we added there. And then, we're going to continue to roll out the Office 2021 videos. We're almost done with those, and then you'll start seeing Captivate and a few other programs that have been requested will be in fall and everything like that. And then, then we roll into the new year. And then the last thing I'll say is that you guys will see some courses. Once the courses feature launches, you guys will see some of our new professional development soft skill courses pop up there. These are going to be more along the lines of time management, business writing, communication skills, those types of manager skills, I guess the best way to put it is, because that's when we do these trainings in person or online, it's mainly new managers that we're training these skills for. But those will be available for purchase on through the courses option, and they will only be available for purchase through the courses option. Unfortunately, these it takes us a lot more to produce these types of videos, so we can't offer them for free or even ad supported free going forward. But just something to look forward to. No promises of when it's going to launch there. We're still producing all the videos and getting them all recorded and edited. So that'll be something probably Q1 of next year that you guys will see. So that's it for updates. I keep saying that's it for updates, and then I have more updates. And then lastly, Joe, we haven't done this in a long time, but coffee mugs. Boom. I have my Bear loves 85 degrees. It's actually California loves 85 degrees. I've had this cup on a few times. Last week I actually used my Dunkin' Donuts cup, because whenever I'm on the East Coast, I always got to have Dunkin' Donuts. That's like just a must. It just hits different over there. I literally have one right down the street from here. I never go to it because it's just not the one in New York. You know what I mean? And it's just different there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it tastes different.
It's the water, man. It's the water in the city.
I just have Gatorade because I am getting over a little bit of a cold. So if I sound a little nasally, that's why. But yeah, I was like, no, I'm not missing today. I am ready for some Visio. It's an amazing application for just getting your thoughts on paper.
All right. You ready to rock with Visio then?
Let's do it. Let's do some Visio.
Let's do some Visio.
Now, I'm thinking what we're going to do today, just because it's like a process that everybody probably knows about, is I'm going to do a new hire onboarding process. So, yeah, if you do have Visio, feel free to follow along with me. If you don't, no worries at all. You can practice this later. But let me share my screen real quick.
And yeah, just putting this in, onboarding is a extremely popular topic on YouTube education. I can tell you guys, it's something that a lot of people are searching for. So it's definitely a skill to have.
And can you all see my screen?
Yep, we are good to go, Joe. Take it away.
Awesome. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like. The first thing we're going to do is just open up Visio, of course. And when you're utilizing Visio, it's important to note that the templates in Visio are very important. See, when you have a template in Excel, you can choose to use that or not, or you can just start off with a blank spreadsheet. Or, for instance, PowerPoint, right? You can start off with a blank PowerPoint presentation, or Word with a blank Word document. But in Visio, if you start off with a blank drawing, what that's going to do is it's going to have no stencils. Now, if you're wondering what a stencil is, it's just a collection of shapes within Visio. And typically, I never use blank drawings at all. I probably use them 5% of the time. I'm always using some sort of template from Visio because it has the shapes already in there that I need. If I don't do that, I would have to incorporate the shapes, and then you might not know what shapes you need, and so on and so forth. So Visio acts a little different in the way they use templates. In Visio, you will definitely use templates more. Now, the template I'm going to use is a cross-functional flowchart. And I love this because we can start to break down different, I would say, processes that we need to get done for some sort of project or some sort of process. And we can departmentalize them into their own categories. Like maybe HR department's going to have this, or maybe payroll's going to have a part in this, or even managers. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to do an onboarding process. I'm going to click cross-functional flowchart. If you don't see it right away, this is because I've used it many times, so it's in my recents. But if you have to, you could go to more templates, go over to flowcharts, where it says suggested searches, or you could just type in flowcharts, and then you'll see it here. Now, you will see there is integration with Visio and Excel. So if you have your data already existing in Excel, you can use this one. And it'll just pull the data from Excel and then create a diagram based off of that, which I think is really unique, and it's a feature that I use sometimes. But today, I want to build something from scratch. So, of course, I'm going to just use this one here, the cross-functional flowchart. Now, they do give you templates inside of templates. I know that sounds weird, but they're like, Joe, we do have a template for cross-functional flowcharts. We have this vertical one, or horizontal and vertical over here. So they have a horizontal one when your processes are going horizontally, or vertical if your process is going down more. They also have something known as a shared process. So you can also utilize this when sometimes you'll see here this shape is a little bit on both ends, right? This process here is being shared by two departments, Department 1 and Department 2. So this is what's known as a shared process cross-functional chart. But once again, I'm not going to use that today. I'm going to start from scratch. And I'll click create. Now, just to mention, before I click create, there is US units and metric units. Whatever one that you go by, you can choose. I'm going to be utilizing US units today, and I'll click create. Now that I have this, you'll see they have a little bit of a setup for me. You could delete all this out and just start from scratch, but I actually like this setup because it looks perfect for what I want to do. Not only that, but you'll also notice on the left-hand side now, I have these stencils. I have cross-functional flowchart shapes. I have basic flowchart shapes. So I'm already starting off with a lot given to me. Now, these shapes, by the way, are known universally or globally, right? You always know that a process is a rectangle. A subprocess is a rectangle with 2 lines going down the sides. So this is something that a lot of companies know, and it doesn't really change. Now, let's say, for instance, I want to start coming up with a way that I can create this flowchart. You'll see here that we have 2 things. It's kind of like Excel. We have 1 column, right? This is a full column itself. And we have 2 rows, this row and this row. And we have to pick and choose what we want exactly. Do we want our departments on the rows and maybe our quarters up top? Like maybe this process will take 4 quarters, quarter 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Or do we want our quarters on the left and our departments up top? It's really up to you how you want to set this up. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to have my departments here. And then instead of having like phase 1, I'm going to have 2 phases. I'm just going to split this column into 2 by putting a line down the middle, also known as a separator. And I'm going to call this side, this first column, post acceptance. And this second column will be, or this one will be pre-acceptance, and this one will be post-acceptance. So to do this, to actually split this column into 2, you take a separator, and I'm going to click and drag it right here. And now you'll see we have 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. It's split into now 2 columns. And I'm just going to go in here. I'll zoom in using Control mouse wheel. I'm going to double click. I'm going to rename phase and call it pre-acceptance. And then I'm going to name this column post-acceptance. There we go. So now I have 2 different timelines, right? And now I'm going to put in my functions, which are going to be my departments. We're going to start off with the employee themselves, right? This whole new hire process starts off with an employee. So I'll say employee. Then I know HR is going to be involved. And I also know that payroll department is going to be involved, and so is the employee's manager. So I need to add 2 more, what are known as swim lanes. Now you'll see here we have vertical separators, swim lanes that are vertical. You're just going to go with the flow. I know I'm putting my stuff horizontally, so I'm going to use a horizontal swim lane. Now you want to make sure that it is right next to it. If you go too far down, it'll just make it another cross-functional flowchart, which we don't want. So I'll use Control-Z to undo that. You want to be sure when you take the swim lane, you put it almost on right next to it, and then it'll just add to your original. And I'll do one more because I know we need 4 departments. And then I'll call this, let's do payroll. And I'll call this one manager. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is just put this as a title. I'm going to call it the new hire onboarding process. And I think that looks good so far. So now we have sort of a structure for this cross-functional flowchart. The last thing I want to start doing now is, of course, putting our shapes in here. So I'm going to move from the cross-functional flowchart shapes to basic flowchart shapes. And every single process, right, starts off with some sort of start or end. And I'm going to say that this is going to start off. I'm going to just click and drag to put the shape in here. You can resize it with the sizing bullets if you wanted to. And I'm going to say that this is going to be something the employee does. So the employee has to, in order for this new hire onboarding process to begin, the employee has to accept the offer, right, that we give them for employment. So I'm just going to say employment offer accepted. Now, just keep in mind that we're working with 2 things here. We're working with the text itself, and if you want to modify the text in any way or format it, you can use the font command group for this. So that's going to actually affect the text. If I want to affect the shape, we're going to use shape styles to affect the actual shape. Maybe I want to change the color of the shape. Maybe I want to make it, have some features like shadows and things like that. So anytime you want to affect the shape, use shape styles. Anytime you want to affect the text inside of the shape, you use font. And I actually do want to affect the text right now. I want to make it a little bigger. So I'll just go with a 12 point. I think that looks good. And there we go. We have our first, little process here. Now, we will get into like formatting this stuff later. So I'll color this all in if you want me to. I don't mind. You can change the color of the shape, fill it in with like green if you wanted to. But we'll come to that later. Let's just work on getting through this process. So after the offer is accepted, the employment offer accepted, that's when HR is going to start preparing the employee paperwork. Now, since we're talking about paperwork, I think of a document, so I'll use document. But remember, you don't have to use the same exact things I'm using. If you're like Joe, I feel like that's more of a process or more data. You can use those shapes. But for me, I think of paperwork as a document. Now, I love this feature. When you start to manipulate this, it automatically tells you when you're the same length. It'll even tell you when you're the same height. But I think that this is obviously going to be a little bigger, so I'll just keep that like that. That looks good. And then I could just start typing. And I'll just say, prepare employee paperwork. And once again, I'm going to just change the size of this text to about 12. I think that looks good. All right. So after we prepare the employee paperwork, well, then HR has to actually send it out to the employee so that they can, of course, fill it out. And that's a process. So I'm going to drag process. I'm going to make it the same length as the rest of them. That looks good. Maybe the same height. Oop, that looks great. And I think right there looks great. So I'm going to say that this process is send out employee paperwork. And once again, I'm just going to select the text and make it 12 font. Now, after this, there's another process where the employee returns the finished paperwork because we send it out and then it's in the employee's part to do this again. And this is all happening in pre-acceptance. So I'm going to put another process here. But the problem is if I use a process, it comes over in the default size again. And then I have to manipulate it, resize it, make sure it's all the same, change the font. I don't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to make my life easier by just duplicating this shape and then just rewriting in it. So I'll select it, and I'm going to use Control D. That's the keyboard shortcut for duplication. This also works in PowerPoint as well. So I'm going to select the shape, Control D, and it creates an instant duplicate. And then all I have to do is just write the text out. Employee returns finished paperwork. And there we go. Now, after the employee returns the finished paperwork, it's going to go back over to HR. They'll send it back to HR, and HR is then going to contact the payroll team. Now, all of this, once they finish the paperwork, they're now in post-acceptance. So we're going to start not putting stuff here because this was pre-acceptance. We're going to start putting stuff in this column. So I'm going to create another process. I'm going to use Control D to duplicate. And it's going to be HR department that's working with this now again. They're going to contact the payroll department or payroll team, whatever you want to call them. The payroll team is then going to enter in the employee's data into the system. So I'm going to use the data shape for this. And once again, you don't have to use the same shapes I'm using. It's just whatever you feel like makes more sense. So I'm going to say enter employee info into system. And I'll just, of course, make that a little bigger there. There we go. Next thing I'm going to do is the payroll is going to enter the employee info in the system, and the manager will get an email, and they'll have to schedule their start date. So I think that's another process. I'll duplicate this one. And this is something that the actual manager has to do now. And I'll say schedule start date. Now, after they schedule the start date, that information is going to be given to HR, and HR has to schedule a orientation for the employee. So once again, that's a process. Schedule orientation. And then I think that's it. We're going to end this whole process with, well, the employee starts their first day. So that's going to be in the employee section in the post acceptance. So I'm just going to use a start and end. And since I already have one, I'm just going to duplicate this and say start first day. Okay, so now we're looking pretty good, except we have one problem. What's the flow, right? This is called a cross-functional flow chart, not just looking at shapes. So we don't know exactly where we're going with this, because maybe I'm going to say employee accepts offer, then do we go to employer returns finished paperwork? No, we know it goes from this one to this one to this one to this one. And now we have to create what's known as connectors to do such. Now, to create a connector, we have to change from our pointer tool, which is in the tools section. The pointer tool is what we've been using, and change it to the connector tool. So I'll just go up top, put connector, and now I can make these connections by just simply hovering over from the middle of a shape to the middle of another shape. What that does is it creates a connection. But there's two types of connections that you can have. One is called a static connection, and one is called a dynamic connection. So let me explain. When you go from the middle of a shape to the middle of another shape, that creates what's known as a dynamic connection, which means right now the line is going from the bottom of this shape to the top of this shape. But if I move this over here, well, then it's going from the left of this shape to the right of this shape. And if I move it up top, then it's going from the top of this shape to the bottom of this shape. So it actually moves wherever I move it. And that's not always something you want. So dynamic connections aren't always exactly what you want, but sometimes you do want a static connection. So let me show you how to create a static connection. I'm just going to select this connector and press delete. I'll go grab my connector tool, and instead of going from the middle to the middle, you'll notice when you hover over, you get these little bullet points, left, top, bottom, right, and that's how you can glue the connector or make a static connection. So I'll just say from the bottom, always to the top. And now watch what happens when I move this. It's going to always stay the same. Even if I go here, it goes bottom to top. If I go over here, it goes bottom to top. So now it's staying connected exactly where we wanted it. And now I'm just going to do the same thing with all the rest of the connections. I'm going to go from the left to the right, from the top to the bottom, and I'll just follow my flow. Now, once you create your connections, you might not like things like this. You see this little step? You could try to fix this by like moving this around and figuring out how to make it go straight. But a quick way to do this is if you go over to the align, which is in the arrange command group, you can actually auto align these shapes and it'll fix that for you. So you don't have to sit there and really play around with it because that could get annoying. Once again, I go to align, auto align, and it does it for me. Now that everything's looking good, and I mean, this just is a beautiful flow. Now what I can do is start to manipulate the color of this, because right now we're using the colors that Microsoft pre-designed. I don't like them. So for instance, I'm going to change my start by using shape styles. I'll make it green, maybe a green border. And then I'll add some effects. Maybe I want to do a shadow, like an inner shadow. Maybe I want to do a glow, maybe a greenish glow. I think that looks great. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this one, but I don't want to have to remember what I just did. So you can always click on a shape, go to Format Painter, and then click on the other one. And it'll just copy the look of one to the other. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my processes. I want them to be, I don't know, maybe I want them to be a red. And maybe I want the line to be red. I want it to have a shadow. And I want it to glow. Now, if you don't see a red glow here, just go to glow options. And you can always just choose the color that you want. And I want red. Now, the glow is really too bright here. It's not like that on these. So I'm going to change it, the glow, to a size of 5. And I think that looks great. Once again, I'm just going to go over to my Format Painter. This time I'll do a double click so it locks it. Because if you just do one click, choose a shape, you can't change the rest of them. So you can actually lock Format Painter by clicking on it, double click on Format Painter, and now I can do them all at once. And then turn it off. For my document here, I'm probably going to just do a black color. I think that looks good. With a white text. Remember, if you want to affect the font, go to font. And then for this one, I'll do a kind of like goldish color. I'm doing all the same things like inner shadow, a glow. And I think that looks great. We've now made some really good changes here. So I love the way this looks. And now we can even like add some more, customization to this. Maybe you want to add a little, I don't know, maybe a Learnit icon, right? A logo. Learnit logo. And I'll put that down here. And I don't know, I think this looks amazing. Perfect. Now I will show you just one more thing before we end today. Once you have a cross-functional flowchart, it could be hard trying to present this to somebody. So I'm going to show you a really cool trick. See, let's say you have to give this as a presentation. You could do it two ways. You can either just print this as a PDF and then put it into a, let's say, I don't know, a PowerPoint presentation. But people still want to be able to follow along with you and have some sort of breakdown. And Visio has a really unique feature. If we go over to the File tab, we can actually export this as a Word document so we can hand out notes. And watch how cool this is. Ready? I'm going to export this to Word. It's going to take a minute. And ready for this? This is my favorite thing. You'll add your company name, you'll add your logo, and then you can see today's date. And if you scroll down, you can give it a title, a version, and then your name. You can do a table of contents as well. And then when you start scrolling down, look how amazing this is. Ready? It gives you an overview, page 1. It gives you a detailed view, page 1. And you could say, hey, HR, this is what you're in charge of. The employee's in charge of this. Payroll, you're in charge of entering the employee info into the system, and the manager is in charge of scheduling the start date. Then it goes through the entire process. Okay, so the employment offer is accepted. We'll then start to prepare the paperwork, and that's going to actually be HR that does this. Well, then after we prepare the paperwork, we will send out the paperwork. And then after we do that, and then you see how it goes step by step, it does a nice breakdown, and it did all of this for you, which was amazing. And that's it. So I hope you really enjoyed this. I think we're just at time, so this is perfect. But yeah, let me know, your thoughts if you really enjoyed this content, and you want more Visio stuff. We can do more Visio stuff. But,
that Format Painter locking, I think, was a game changer for me. And for whatever reason, your camera's off. I think it's with Melon. Oh, there you go. But yeah, actually, that Format Painter thing, that's a game changer. Can you do that in Excel? Double click it and then.
Okay. Yeah, you can keep it locked. Yeah.
Oh, man. Dude, every time I should just talk to you before I do any data entry project because I always end up learning something new. But yeah, we are at time, guys. I do want to let Joe get back to his weekend and everything like that and on the road to recovery. So we don't have time for questions, unfortunately. Just a quick for today, it's a triple shot today, guys. It's us, and then later on, Offsite is going to be having their event. They're actually going to be doing Excel See, I have it right in front of me. They're going to be doing pivot tables chart and charts with Mo. So Mo will be teaching you guys pivot tables. That starts at 8:30. And then at 9:30, we have Access Advanced. So yeah, lots of learning, lots of videos, lots of content coming your way today. We also, we do have a podcast if you guys want to check that out. I think we're getting an episode out today as well. So we're giving you guys content on all fronts today. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for today because we are at time. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you next week on Thursday with Chelsea doing VBA loop structures.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.